I don't know if that helps or makes it worse. All right, everybody, welcome to the latest in the Paige Black Business Leader Series. And today I want you to think about the last meeting you had before the coronavirus crisis. For me, I was in a coffee shop with a potential client. It was outdoors. I had a lovely coffee with a CEO of a company here in Denver, and I had and her CFO, and we were looking at a potential project, and it just was a really delightful day. The next day, the entire planet went on lockdown, and I didn't get to see the world for quite a while. So today we're going to be talking about how all of business has changed. Everything has dramatically shifted. We went from we're on lockdown to we're going to go back. We're going to work from home. Now the bosses are saying you can't work from home. Employees are saying, yes, I am. And there's this big, great resignation of 2021. There's not really any part of business that hasn't been impacted by the crisis, and that impact is ongoing. I think today Facebook and Google both delayed their back to work from home, and they're starting to mandate some vaccinations, at least some of those vaccinations. So it's definitely also changed marketing. And so today we're going to be talking about how has marketing changed. And let me quickly I'm actually going to go here, introduce my panel today of experts. Mike Bowers is our first panelist. He is a pro at client experience. Mike most recently worked at Interview, where they measure how well your message is propagated internally, which is fascinating. One of the reasons I invited him to this panel, but he's also interested in client experience. So I think he's going to bring a great experience for us, or perspective for us. Next, we have Lindsay Johnson, CEO and Managing Director of WordBank here in Denver. WordBank is a global marketing company. So if you want to go to Germany or you want to go to China, they have the people to help you build a marketing campaign that's effective there. And Lindsay said, I'm supposed to say this about her. She's been a well-traveled Brit working here in Denver since 2007. She says, she's fortunate to be a part of an amazing international team skilled in global marketing, translation, localization, and that dedicated to their vision. And here's what I'm going to tell you that she's not telling you. She's grown the Denver-based team from 50 to 60 and now manages 100 people globally. They're in 92 countries. And just a great, amazing organization. So you definitely, if you're going to be doing global marketing, want to talk to them. Next, we have Heather Vogel. She is the Director of Marketing Communications at DMA. And DMA is an accounting firm. I believe they're based in Indianapolis. I hope I'm right. And they want to serve to be an extension of your tax department. She most recently worked at Deloitte. Did I get that right, Heather?
Correct.
All right, good. I'm batting 100 so far today. We'll see how well that goes. So Heather is most recently from Deloitte. So she's going to really bring a big business picture for this to us today. Thank you, April, for doing all of those introductions and kind of getting those links out for us. Finally, we have Marilyn Heywood Paige, our Chief Marketing Officer. Marilyn has a master's in integrated marketing. She started off marketing her own singing skills, ended up working at Barnes & Nobles, at QVC, and other places. She has 25 years experience, and she now teaches marketing to graduate students at the University of Denver. And I'm going to tell you, none of that is important to me, as what I'm going to tell you now is that Marilyn, for our company and our clients, takes marketing personally. If it's not going well, it bothers her, and she works until it gets it fixed, and she does her very best to make sure that happens, but it's personal to her, and she loses sleep to make sure it's right. All right, let's keep moving forward today. I'm Mike Black. I'm the CEO Managing Partner of Paige Black, probably the least important person on the call. All I did to do is ask questions. Let's talk a little bit about Paige Black briefly before we get started. Marketing is a little bit like being lost in the woods for business leaders today. That you have all these different options around where you can market, how you develop messaging, all of those things. And it's really hard to figure out what's the best way to go about that. One way that comes out is they're just not clear on your message. People, when I'm in networking meetings or I'm sitting with CEOs of companies, often they'll say, we just don't know how to talk about and explain how we're better than our competition. And so what we do at Paige Black is, let me tell you what they do is they start asking their salespeople, they start asking their networking partners, they ask everybody but the right people, which is their customers. And so what we do here at Paige Black is we'll go ask their customers. We actually do a study to figure out what's the best way to message that company and talk about how they're better than their competition. So if that's something of interest, give us a shout. Otherwise, let's get on to the more important content for today. Our first question. And so I want to just start off with, we've had all these changes. I want to ask, and Marilyn, I'm going to pick on you and start with you. What are the larger trends you're seeing today?
With digital transformation, I see the larger companies wanting to integrate the entire customer journey and integrate sales and operations and customer service and just a greater integration across the entire spectrum. And of course, that comes with a lot of challenges, but it's only really possible with the digital tools that we have now. So that's what I'm seeing.
All right. Great answer. All right. Let's talk bigger business. Heather, she actually kind of jumped the gun on that and went a little bit big. What are you seeing?
So I am about 2 months into my journey with DMA, as Mike mentioned, previously with Deloitte. So in the professional services space, we're really seeing folks leaning on marketing more. A lot of our traditional marketing and sales has been focused on event-based marketing, convening people together. And I think when the rug got pulled out from underneath all of us last March, there was a greater reliance on the marketing department. In fact, my arrival at DMA was part of them expanding the department by more than double. They really took a look at how they had traditionally invested in marketing and realized that going forward, they would need much more resource in that department. To Marilyn's point, we have a dedicated digital marketer now. And so in my, again, narrow lens of professional services, I really see organizations more so now than ever needing to rely on us to be the voice of the customer and understand, what is the next disruption? Hopefully not another pandemic, but what's next, and be more forward thinking.
Yeah, I don't. Let's hope there's not another pandemic, or at least we can get this one shut down and the Delta variant doesn't take the world apart.
Right.
But that said, I don't think the change, the innovation and change and the pace of that is going back to what it was. I think people have figured out, like, we can change and pivot quickly. Why would we slow down? And so I think the pace of business is going to increase. So that's it. Lindsay, give us the global perspective on this. What are you seeing?
Well, I mean, I think a little bit of what both Marilyn and Heather have brought up here, which is, the pace of things has shifted. I think trends that were already in play have kind of been accelerated by COVID. So marketing, I think for us generally, I think has become less about generating demand, but more about connection and driving trust and connection with the customer. And so for us, that feeds into customer experience, and the concept of kind of a 360 customer journey. On the international side, we're in marketing localization. So, a lot of companies come to us to help take their marketing content into multiple markets. They think about language primarily in doing that. But there's a lot more focus now on the authenticity of that experience for international audiences, thinking beyond just language, but actually what the customer journey looks like, what local trends look like, how to leverage analytics to inform content strategy at the local level. And those are, progressive things that have been happening in the industry for a while that have been accelerated by the fact that e-commerce has just blown up. We've had a decade's worth of global e-commerce growth in 2020. So customers know what they want, and they're all over the world, and they have high expectations.
Very good. That actually leads right into my answer, but I'm going to hold off and give Mike Bowers a shot here. What are you saying, Mike?
Well, I'm going to play nice to start here and just say, I really couldn't agree more. There's been a theme from all of the panelists here about customer and customer experience. I am gonna introduce the word omnichannel into the conversation. I think that is a very significant pivot that companies have demonstrated that they can do it today. I think of Warby Parker, I think of Chick-fil-A and many others. So companies like that are demonstrating that they can deliver the same journey consistently across all channels. I think that really is the destination. It's no longer an option for companies today. So.
All right. So folks, just so you know, I told them all to disagree with each other at least a little bit. None of them, they've all failing me miserably here, but I will, and I don't have a disagreement either.
Well, you know what Mike said? That's so easy to say and so hard to do.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Fine. Stand up for the guest, Marilyn. Okay. So my perspective though, is I see a shift and it does go in line with what you guys are saying. But what I'm seeing is I think in a lot of spaces, especially in the B2B sector, marketing has really been an order taker for salespeople. And that the sales team says they need this. I know that's, and I'm seeing nods because I think it's so true. And I think that is going to change over the next 12 to 18 months. I think that marketing is going to begin to take over the customer journey and begin to start to drive that conversation.
I'm going to disagree with that, Mike.
Okay, there we go. Go on, Marilyn.
I'm going to disagree with that because there are so many organizations that are simply sales facing, sales forward. And they, you know, how many organizations have we run into that don't even have marketing departments? They have like a marketing coordinator who's like a recent grad or something, you know, but I think there's a lot of companies that distrust marketing and will lean harder into their salespeople. And they'll just simply say, okay, guys, you got to just do it digitally. You just got to reach out and network and do it digitally and not understand the tools that they need and the messaging and all that. I think that there are absolutely organizations who will just lean harder into sales.
But is that going to deliver success for them though? I mean,
for some, I think it will. For some industries, it will. Absolutely. Yes.
See, and I think with my position and, you know, again, my recent arrival at DMA, from where I sit, I think it's a realization that, you know, spray and pray and try to network on LinkedIn and, you know, I don't know, kind of the wild hair of the week based on a salesperson might not be the best strategy yielding the best results. But again, I'm in a unique spot of, you know, getting a chance to kind of make a move and start something new in the middle of all of this.
All right. So I asked Marilyn to disagree with me. She brings it heavy. I'm going to push back though, because here's what I see. If you look at the finances of a company, the most costly part of that company is the sales team.
That's right.
And so if you look at what's going on, if savvy companies invest in marketing and that makes their sales team more efficient, they're able to close deals faster, they're able to get meetings faster, and all of that is easier, the word will get out. And I might be wrong on my 18 months, but I'm pretty firm in my perspective. And I think eventually it will be a little bit of the dinosaur or the dodo bird for companies that aren't thinking marketing first. Certainly, if you look late adoption industries like industrial, manufacturing, they will be the tail end of this and they may be 5 years out. But if you start to look at companies that are forward facing, like accounting for just one example, professional services where brand is important and all of that, I think that it's going to be faster.
Yeah. I'm not talking about SaaS. You're right. I'm not talking about SaaS companies. I'm talking about the late adopters, and there's a lot of them.
The trend that SaaS started pre-COVID was breaking up the sales process and bringing in sales enablement for the top end of the funnel. That is going to move to more traditional sales organizations. Big branded manufacturers are realizing, to Mike's point, that they don't need 90 highly paid salespeople. They can optimize and be more important to their, it's the 80-20 rule, right? It's the 20% will bring in 80% of the volume. So they'll get their field people to focus more on those highly critical clients and let their inside sales support the lesser so. So I think you're going to see a combination. I agree with Marilyn, though, that more traditional companies, to Mike's point, it's going to take a while for them to make that shift.
Yeah, some of them don't have websites yet, so I think that is that's totally fair. So that's it. Go ahead, Marilyn.
When people are afraid, they do what's comfortable.
Right.
They don't take risks when they're afraid. And marketing for a lot of companies is a risk. They don't understand it. They've kind of dipped a toe and that didn't go well. Well, that is the threat to marketing, frankly. Yeah.
Well, we'll see if we're right. If we are smart on this call and we're right, or at least if I'm right, if Marilyn's wrong, we'll see where marketing goes. Yeah, I'll leave I had another little snarky comment, but not about the panel. It was about SaaS and business sales process, and that's for another day. All right, really quickly before we go forward with the call, I do want to say, speaking of sales and marketing being on the same page, we have a webinar on that. That'll be Tuesday, August 17th, 10 a.m. Denver, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And so I think April's going to share a link to that. If you'd like to join us, that'd be wonderful. And then we'll move into our next question. Folks have not taken out the animation, so that it just pops up. All right, we've kind of gotten into this, but let's get one prediction from everyone. What's the top change coming in the next year?
Yeah,
all right.
I'm going to
Mike's not even going to let me call on him. He is going. Go, Mike.
Yeah, I'm going to come real fast. Again, we've already mentioned it. Customer experience, client journeys, really getting voice of the customer, understanding that holistically. I think that really has got to be the shift.
Okay. Any disagreement? No, I'm kidding. Just go. Marilyn, what are your thoughts?
Oh, God. I don't have any thoughts yet.
Okay.
Pick on someone else.
All right. Lindsay, what are your thoughts?
I think it's about brand purpose. You know, I agree with what Mike said, and we talked about customer experience being really important, customer journey, you know, from awareness through to advocacy. I think something that has been bubbling under for a long time in marketing is more and more expectation from consumers about, you know, who they're buying from. So consumers with disposable income who have choices in the marketplace, they are really in the driver's seat. They don't want to be sold to. So, I mean, this is, again, depends on the size of the company, but, you know, we're talking about companies that are afraid of marketing. But if you've got larger companies who are established and growing, they're getting there through marketing, you know. Mm-hmm. And they are aware of the fact that the consumers are more and more conscious of the purpose behind what they're doing. So you're seeing more of this messaging coming up, you know, whether it's, I don't know, Airbnb's, you know, purpose being to try and bring freedom to people who are feeling, you know, like they've lost their freedom through COVID, or, you know, Uber's purpose in ferrying people to go and get vaccinations, or more kind of CSR related purposes around, you know, the environment or sustainability. You're seeing more and more of this in the marketplace, and I think that's been accelerated by COVID. I think people are much more conscious. They're online. Their habits have changed, like you said at the beginning, Mike, about work and shopping and just leisure and everything. Everyone's having a rethink about their priorities, and I think it inevitably means we're going to see more brand purpose coming into it. And for global marketing, that is inevitably going to mean that global brands have got to consider how global friendly their brands are. You know, so they may define their brand standards centrally and their brand messaging centrally, but they may need to adapt it for international audiences and international markets, depending on what's going to resonate with those. So it's going to be more of a centralized kind of directional marketing and a local execution for relevance and really bringing that message around purpose.
That's not complicated at all.
Didn't say it was easy.
No, it's not. I mean, if you think about like what's resonating in China and in Asia, it's can be very, very different than what's going on in the United States.
For sure.
So and then if you have centralized messaging and strategy, and then you're like that's very difficult to hit all of those. Heather, what are you saying?
You know, I'm not going to give you your respectful disagreement here. I would agree with Lindsay around brand purpose, and the word that came to mind was authenticity. So you take a super huge brand like Deloitte, and they really stepped into some of the maybe spaces that they wouldn't have before around corporate social responsibility. So I think of, you know, shortly after COVID last summer, right, and some of the unrest that was going on around the country. And now I see that happening at DMA. Never before in my career have I been pulled as much into items that are around how we show up as a corporate citizen. What is our purpose? And that's talking about kind of a stuffier, more conservative industry like accounting, right? The same companies that aren't going to be maybe the first to jump on a marketing trend or a trend in the same way that a B2C company would. Organizations are really taking a hard look at how they show up. And it's not only from their client perspective, but I think, one of the things I'm sure we'll touch on is recruiting. And I think you mentioned it, kind of how COVID's impacting, people changing jobs. And so I really see from my seat at DMA, us taking kind of both of those pieces, wanting to be an employer of choice in light of everything being disrupted, and then also how we are showing up as a corporate citizen and how we communicate that to the marketplace.
All right, I'll give my answer, and then I'll let Marilyn give it a shot now that she's had time to think while we're doing it. I'm actually going to echo what Heather said, and so my thoughts are, in the last 2 weeks, I have come across 2 websites that highlight the supply chain and the bad things that are happening in large company supply chains. Like, they're talking about slavery and saying, are you supporting slavery when you buy from this company? Like, this isn't small stuff, and they're exceptionally well done websites. And so I see marketing. Like, you're going to need marketing support if your company's on that list. That marketing should be involved in that. That's a huge brand and messaging issue. And so I see marketing being, I guess my answer is marketing is going to be integrated more across all of the organizations, because the needs across the organizations really involve what marketing specializes in. And it goes back to recruitment as well, that with the great resignation of 2021, I know 2 or 3 people that are critical to their organization who have left their jobs in the last 2 weeks. And it's not stopping there. And I think companies are going to begin to look at, well, one, the marketing department should be writing the job description, because that's how you're actually going to get some interest in the job description. It's not going to be boring and stuffy. And 2, if you don't have a company that people are proud to work at, you're going to lose people faster. It's going to be harder to recruit. And so you're actually going to see marketing shift to a supporting brand, like brand supporting recruitment and retention of employees.
We used to call that internal branding. So, and internal marketing really is just as important as external branding and, tying in employee engagement.
Yeah. So we work with a company that's a commercial mason. They had a pretty old website. It looked like they sold Harley Davidsons out of the back of a garage. I didn't say that. I'm sorry if you heard this. And so we actually, they were at risk of losing one of their key employees. And we redid some things for them. And one of the owner, this was like a key employee, found that person with decals with an air dryer after hours, kind of putting the decals on the trucks. Of the logo.
The new logo. Yeah.
And so I just think it is like, if you don't have a company that you can be proud of, then you're going to start looking. I think that's a part of it, especially for younger generation. Yeah. We all want to be proud of our identity, so tied up in work. So that's my thought, Marilyn.
Okay, go in a different direction entirely. So we're drowning in data. We're drowning in statistics and analytics and data. And the studies are showing that, 40% of the companies that are collecting all this data are actually making use of it. I think that behavioral economics is going to play a bigger part in marketing, from the standpoint that BE is all about understanding behavior and figuring out how to nudge it, how to change it incrementally, figuring out those leverage points. So I think it's being used in public policy. BE is very common in public policy and healthcare, where they're wanting to change particular behaviors. For example, when you, instead of outruling soda, right, and being authoritarian, I can't say that word, Mike, what you do is you offer the soda, and then right next to it, you have, fruit juice, and you make the fruit juice cheaper. And then that's, nudging people toward a healthier choice. I think that as we get savvier with BE and BE studies, and we take those analytics and we take all of that data and figure out what are people doing and how do we make that data actionable, and how do we create the BE studies that will help us to nudge the behavior of consumers, B2B, B2C, in the ways that we want. That's where I think it's going.
So Marilyn, you believe this so strongly, you're investing personally.
Yes, I am. I am getting a degree in it. Yes,
right.
I am.
So there you go. Soon it will be Marilyn Heywood Paige, MS and PhD. Is that fair?
Not soon, but we got some years to go.
Soon,
but, yeah.
Soon in an old person's perspective, which means anytime in the next 10 years.
And I will look much older and grayer then.
All right, so we're gonna shift forward and say, okay, we've got all these predictions. We're telling you all these things. This is what's gonna happen. But what the heck do you do? What should they do now? All right, let's go back and see if this. I don't like that view. Let's pop into this view. All right, Lindsay, what do you think? What should companies do now? Let's take that global. Like, if you're a global firm, what's your first 1 or 2 steps?
Well, I'm just trying to sort of gather all of the things that we've been talking about here. It's about making a commitment. If you want to go international and really are serious about driving international growth, and there are many companies who have turned to international consumers as a way of bolstering business, which has taken a hit, honestly, in domestic markets. And it is a very effective way of doing that. It's about making a commitment to do that at the organizational level, and then being mindful about the intent there, thinking about, as we've been talking about, customer experience. What Marilyn was just talking about reminded me of something I read last month that McKinsey put out. They were talking about triple play marketing, which is the combination of creativity, analytics, and purpose, and how those 3 things combined if the companies that are doing it well, and I think there aren't that many at the moment, they're seeing massively faster growth rates than companies that just do one of those things. So in international, it's looking at analytics. It's perhaps testing the water before making a massive decision to, say, translate everything you have in online into multiple languages, but testing the local market opportunity, using the data from that, and I'm talking about through digital marketing tactics. So you can run paid search campaigns for pretty low cost, low risk. You get data out of the situation. You use that to inform content strategy and then drive it from there. And the same goes for looking at search trends, determining what's going on in the marketplace to inform content strategy, and being more thoughtful about authenticity, which is something that Heather mentioned earlier. So for an international thing, that really is important. It's thinking about the long game, thinking about the end goal, and it's about growth and how you're going to achieve that, and applying best practice marketing for international, not just dumbing it down to translation and thinking that you can just put everything out there and
yeah, there's some stories there of companies getting into trouble when they just translate a campaign.
For sure.
Yeah,
always around marketing content.
That's right.
Always.
Yep, I have some good stories, and I would love to share them, but I think we might run out of time. So Heather, what are you seeing?
I would say embrace and empower marketing. And I'm putting on my lens of a mid-sized US-based organization that, tend to have varying degrees of maturity as far as a marketing department. I would say by embracing it, invite marketing to the table. I've worked not only at, Deloitte and DMA, but in a variety of industries and a variety of company sizes. And a lot of times marketing doesn't have a seat at all of the right tables. We're told what the campaign is or what we think, what somebody thinks the story should be. So that's, what I mean by embrace and empower. Marketing should have a seat at all tables. I think another area is, really to the sales marketing divide, and it's a current area of opportunity. My seat at DMA, figuring out how marketing becomes a great partner to the sales organization. Marilyn, I love what you said about, helps them kind of get the conversation and what that looks like. So that's my advice.
All right, Mike.
Yeah, I was thinking to Marilyn's earlier point about behavioral economics. I became familiar with a concept that is called jobs to be done, which is a bit of a pivot from that to really focusing on all of the purposes that a customer would potentially need a thing, whatever that is, and really marketing to that. The other piece of that, though, as mentioned earlier, is meeting customers, particularly for high consideration products, where that we all know customers are Googling and searching out those solutions early. How do we come alongside? How do marketers come alongside those customers while they're moving through that first part of the journey? I don't have an answer for that, but I think that ultimately is where companies will need to go. And I think it ties to this idea around jobs to be done and behavioral economics, as Marilyn brought up.
All right. So I'm going to regret this because this means I have to follow Marilyn, but Marilyn, let's get your thoughts on this.
I'm sorry. I was thinking of 3 other things. I apologize, guys. I think that, sorry, what just happened?
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. Sorry.
You're good.
I'm distracted. Pass.
Yeah. All right. So Marilyn is going to pass. I'm going to follow up. I want companies, business leaders to go upstream. It's funny that this is going to lead into my next event, but one of the things that I see is that marketing is just not based on your business strategy, that you're not looking at your SWOT, you're not looking at your business initiatives, and that marketing is kind of completely untied. It's just looking at closing new business, and there's a lot of loss there. And I think of Heather, your point with that, where you say that, I think it was Heather's point, where that maybe the sales side of the organization is driving marketing campaigns. And if you think about what that means, what it means is a salesperson had one lunch with a key customer, and that key customer said, I really like this. And you have no idea if that is across the board. It just happens to be that particular CEO or even that business leader happens to like it. And they may just like it on that day. They may not like it tomorrow. And there's no systemic approach to understanding what customers want. That's not, so really that also is bad. We can't have sales do that. And I think you start with good business initiatives, and I've kind of mixed 2 things there. Heather, what were you going to say?
No, I would just say, when you were saying that, I think, as the pandemic wages on, and now Delta variant, depends on where you're at in the US. I mean, I've seen that starting to happen more and more from the sales folks. We've been waiting for hope that things are going to get back to normal and people are going to generally be uncomfortable being in person. And that's not quite happening. Maybe how we all saw it to happen. And so I really resonate with what you're saying with, I don't want to call it desperation, but maybe just, I call it like a wild hair. We had the one conversation and I know I can't do what I'm most comfortable doing. So maybe we should really push down this path. And, I see that happening a little bit more and more as a return to normal seems to get a little more pushed out.
Yeah. Marilyn, go ahead. I have a comment after.
So to Mike's point, Mike Bauer's point about how do you reach customers higher in the funnel when they're Googling and whatnot? And my answer to that is, first of all, what they're Googling has changed. You have to assume it. And you have to go and talk to them now. You need to go and do, hopefully, the research you did before. You're going to redo it, and you're going to talk to them now about, well, how are you solving these problems now? How are you thinking about it now? Who are you talking to now? And then really take note of how do they speak about it? What are the words that they use to describe the answer, the solution, the problem, the whatever it is? Because that's what you want to put in all of your messaging. So how do you get up alongside that customer as they're making those searches in Google? Well, you're going to put out a lot of content, and you're going to optimize it to be search engine optimized or pay for it to be placed. Because once you know exactly what they're searching for, why and when, now you have the means to create really specific targeted content that will resonate and be compelling to them. And that's how you do that.
Yeah.
All right. Marilyn comes in with an answer. Well, let's move forward. Yeah, now she's like, get me off camera. All right. So my answer to this question, oddly enough, was like, do some business planning. And so it turns out next week we have some experts coming in to talk about business planning. I did not plan this. It's just rolled out this way today. So next week, August 5th, we're going to have our LinkedIn Live will be on business strategy and planning. I have 4 guests that are amazing, that have a really great background. So come hang out with us next Thursday at this time. Now, next question. Let's see if I can get my... We've already really gotten into this, so let's see if we have any additional on this. I'm going to say, how is the role that marketing plays in company changing today?
The biggest thing that we talked about is employee retention and recruitment. Leveraging your marketing to message just as hard inside the company. We're starting a text messaging campaign for a company that is struggling. They're just in one of those industries where they just can't get enough people. And so what Mike came up with was, let's do a text messaging campaign to the current employees with, safety tips and motivational words of encouragement. And then, hey, do you have any friends that would like to work here? So, just giving that employee engagement, morale booster, adding to that culture. And if that's something that would be helpful in your company, come talk to us.
Yeah. And you won't get customer experience without great employee engagement.
Yes.
It's just, it won't happen. So
True.
bravo.
All right, Lindsay, what are you seeing in terms of how the role that marketing is changing?
Well, I mean, I think it's what we're talking about. It's about the fact that marketing is becoming really it's at the helm of growth strategy for a company. Whether or not a company recognizes that or not, I think companies that are dealing with the COVID situation and looking forward, they're realizing that we've gone from new normal to next normal to just normal, right? We're not going back. This is the way the world is going. So marketing is going to be less about a function in a company that supports sales and more about a massive part of the growth strategy of a company that helps to define business strategy. Because we're talking about, if you subscribe to this idea of creativity and analytics sort of being connected, and analytics enable marketing departments to come up with new ways of reaching consumers with new content. But those analytics transcend marketing now. They really help to inform the business as a whole, the direction that businesses should be going. You layer in the purpose piece on that, and then you've got marketing really being heavily involved in the mission of the company, in the strategic direction of the company, which folds into the things we've been talking about. That informs absolutely everything from cultural strategy and attracting and retaining talent in a company. And as Mike just said, those things become absolutely critical to brand experience. So you can't separate customer experience from what goes on internally in a company. And I think marketing is the glue that is going to pull all of those things together. The tech piece, the marketing piece, and the business strategy piece. I think, and companies that are recognizing that are turning to marketing to really help drive growth around those things. It's not just about generating sales, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. Mike, what do you think?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I would just I think it's coming alongside with it's the human to human is what I was trying to say. It's the human to human. We've all kind of moved. Companies have kind of moved in this e-commerce arena, and now I think customers are seeing these breakdowns of the human to human, and that's no longer. I think customers generally are not going to tolerate that moving forward. So if you don't have a clear bridge between the e-commerce and again, we mentioned this omni-channel idea early on, that again, if you're not able to quickly move to a human to human engagement, if needed, in real time, I think companies are really going to struggle.
All right. All right, Heather, what do you think?
I agree with what's been said. I think, helping to drive some of the mission and purpose. I sit in an organization where most people are accountants and have a different mindset and lens on the world than I do. And so, never as much as now have I been called into, again, that corporate social responsibility piece, purpose. Even as I came on board, the focus on helping our HR department with recruiting and internal employee messaging. For me in my over 20-year career, I've never been as much involved in, kind of different pieces of the business that maybe transcend what you would think of as a traditional marketing role.
My thought would be, I think marketing, if for savvy companies, really will go into helping develop the landscape that business planning happens in. That a company that has market research to say this is what's going on, if it's industry analysis or these are what's important to our best customers, I think that having that information helps the company plan better and look at strategic initiatives that helps them understand their SWOT better, because there are probably threats there that they're unaware of. There are probably opportunities that they're unaware of. And how do you do that well if you don't have a good landscape? And so that's my thought about where it's headed in terms of driving things. I don't know how well. I'll say savvy companies. Marilyn, you're gonna disagree with me. Go for it.
The only thing I'm going to disagree with everyone is only the companies that are forced to re-examine their customer relationships, that human to human. Otherwise, the other industries, marketing is still not going to have a seat at the table. Marketing is still going to be the afterthought. I think it's only when a company, it's like, we evolve or die, because we've been the redheaded stepchild forever. We've been the marketing people, the roll the eyes, the bottomless pit of the marketing. That is still, in a lot of companies, very present. And so I think it's only the more modern companies and the companies that just have to evolve or die that are going to give marketing a seat at the table and understand the value of market research and analytics and all of that. Otherwise, no, I think they're going to be sales oriented. I don't see marketing as a strategic partner in those kinds of companies.
But do you think that, that may be the reality because different verticals move at different paces and there's different business infrastructures, but eventually, is anyone going to be able to opt out of that and stick with the old way? I'm really skeptical about that. I think the companies that are really growing and owning the marketplace are being more progressive about the value of marketing in that, and they are looking to embed it as a transparent strategic objective in an organization, whether it's domestic or international. And you might have some industries that sort of, drag their heels on that, but I don't think that they will be able to get away with ignoring it forever, and sticking with old school, because ultimately we're all consumers in some form or another, and consumer behavior, consumer expectations have shifted. I think some of the old school methods just don't resonate anymore. Depends on the demographic, I guess, who you're targeting. There's always nuance to this, but I think it's got a shelf life going, ignoring.
I hope so.
Yeah, in the B2B space, I see as sales has less of their usual tools, maybe, again, that in-person contact, I don't know, having somebody's office phone that they can try to call. They're almost being forced, and this is in the B2B space, to come to marketing, whether they might have been inclined to or not, just to try to think of, what's next. And I see more of a reliance in a B2B space.
Yeah,
I agree. Go ahead, Mike.
I was just going to add to that. You've got the whole supply chain issues. So these B2B companies, certainly those that I'm very familiar with, have been so product centric. How do they make that pivot to customer centricity? Again, it's a mindset thing. It's a big challenge for them today.
All right, so I'll disagree with Marilyn on this piece as well. So one, I think pain does drive. I absolutely agree on the piece that pain drives decision and change. Like if you're in pain, makes the decision so much easier to make when you're like, okay, I do this or I go out of business. Great, we'll do this. But I also think there are a couple of things. One, I think the CEOs and business leaders who have a vision will be drawn into the idea of doing more marketing because that they go together well. My second part of this that I really think is going to happen is that measurement is improving constantly. And there, if we're correct, and I strongly believe we are, that marketing adds value and makes it easier for sales in the B2B space. It makes it easier for salespeople to get a lead, to do a cold call and actually have people pick up and take the call, to close business. All of those things happen better if they know who you are and trust you as a company because you're well established. And so that's going to become measurable. And we're seeing the day that is not, measurable to the penny well, maybe not to the penny, but that's going to be measurable to that extent. And then once the numbers get out, the financial people are going to be going like, oh, this company can do this and it's this much less expensive because they have good marketing. That's when the sea change will happen and marketing will be in the center of it. But you can see the dynamic in our company is that I'm the person that's like, hey, check this out. This is awesome. Mary's like, it's never going to work. Now, to some degree, that is absolutely true, but it's good because it provides balance for us and a lot of fun on calls like this. So any last, that is the last of our questions. We're 45 minutes in. We'll end a little bit early. Any last comments? Any closing comments? And no pressure. Mike, no, I'm kidding. All right.
I'm going to say real quick, and this is not an intentional plug, but I'm going to end with a very controversial comment that CMOs are in danger. I mean, if they cannot show ROI clearly, then there really is no reason why a company that has great mid-level, director level marketing leaders cannot work with a firm like Paige Black to be able to really drive those initiatives forward. Again, I think there's a bit of a challenge there for CMOs moving forward. So
the average, you're right. The average life of a CMO is 2 years at a company. And I believe it's because they are fighting against all of the things that we were talking about, that they don't have a seat at the table. They don't have input into the strategy. They're not in on the planning meetings. So they're getting dictated to by the sales team. It's still a sales forward organization. So it's not in the DNA, right? So they've got certain pieces that are marketing forward, but the DNA of the company is still sales oriented. And that's why I believe the CMOs just turn over because they don't have enough authority within the company to make the changes they need to be a customer centric, marketing driven organization, strategically marketing driven organization.
So if you're correct, Marilyn, it's a tragedy because marketing at its core is a communication. We're a field of communicators. And if we can't communicate the value we're providing internally to the companies we work at, then that's a really serious problem. Any comments, Lindsay or Heather? Boy, it just got debate, a big debate here. Controversy. Nope. Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, I think it really depends on the size of the company. I mean, we work with CMOs at some very large global brands, and it's a similar thing that even the biggest brands in the world who have a global presence don't necessarily have a properly embedded strategy around global at the company level, top down. So that there are definitely circumstances where marketing departments are on the fringes, are desperately trying to produce results. They're being told to do it in 30 markets, and they're just trying to engage with any number of external resources to help them to do that. So I suppose in that way they could be they could be at risk. But that's the reason why results aren't happening, is because it's not embedded at the organizational level. If it is, if marketing is seen as part of a growth strategy, if companies see international marketing as an investment in their future growth, and that really is a commitment at the strategy level, then you start to get much more heavy reliance on marketing, much more support around what marketing is actually trying to do, and then solving the problems that they actually have, which is working with too many agencies who aren't connected at all with each other. They're all working on one little part of the puzzle, and they're struggling to get results. And if they're international, that could be multiplied by X number, depending on how they're actually doing it. So I think our observation is that marketing is critical to what these companies are doing. But of course, we're working with companies who are, quite mature in their journey, in terms of US domestic and international marketing.
Well, to your point, though, I think that so if you think about the kind of the dynamic of the smaller market, lower market companies, middle market companies, and then Fortune 100 or whatever you want to look at in that space, the digital transformation is enabling these larger companies to take on exactly the strength that middle market and lower market companies have, which is pivot quickly. Because they have the technology to support, they have the data to support it, and they're able to make better decisions faster and move things faster as they work on, integrating the digital transformation as well as culture. So that's a real threat for the middle market, that you used to be that you could pivot quickly and you could out pivot and move faster into a space, that the margin of time that you have to do that is becoming more narrow. And so companies in the middle market that aren't really prioritizing market, which is where Marilyn kind of sits. We work in the kind of a late adoption. A lot of our clients are late adoption, and they tend to not value marketing quite as much. And we're showing them that, which is, I think, some of the struggle you're hearing in Marilyn as she talks about this. On the other hand, she says that, but it's not true. Only on bad days, which clearly today is. But that said, if you're a middle market company, that's a threat to you, and you should be looking at how you can build out both. You do the digital transformation and the marketing in a way that enables you to pivot even faster, because that's your main advantage at a larger competitor. They can outspend you. They have a better brand presence. They have more salespeople. They have more money to throw at the problem. They have probably have better margins than you do. Your best chance is your ability to pivot, in my view. I'm open to debating that, and I may be wrong, but that's my perspective.
Do we have time? I have one more point to make.
You have exactly 1 minute, and then I'm shutting it off.
Companies are formed around providing services or creating a product. They do, right? So when their purpose is to do those things. Talking about doing those things, packaging those things is still an afterthought. The do comes first. And then the communication about what they're doing and how they're doing it and who they're selling it to, it comes second, third, fourth, fifth. And that's where it comes from. That's where it comes from.
And delivering the results externally and internally.
So yes and no, I'll say, Marilyn. I agree with you that is where that comes from. On the other hand, what I see is if you look at you look at technology companies, you start to look at SaaS companies, SaaS software companies, they are integrating marketing. Marketing is what they do, right?
Because
like it's inherent. They're a marketing firm.
Right, because it's inherent to its language. Software is language, right? So it's inherent. But that's why I say that this is a longer struggle, because the whole DNA of how companies are formed is not around communication. SaaS is different because that is language. Programming is language. So
I don't know if I buy quite that, but that's all right. We'll end that one on it. Just any other last comments? I gave her a minute and then some. Anybody else? All right, really quickly before we head out, I want to invite everybody next month, Tuesday, August 17th, 10 a.m. Mountain, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. We're going to be talking about how to integrate your sales and marketing department. Thank you, folks, and we will see you next week.